Hey guys, welcome back to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson, episode 3 in our series on judging language and feedback. We are to the conditioning phrase, which to the credit of some judges, they'll say that. We talked about how they may say you need to be drier when they mean less body fat. And sometimes they will say it. That you mentioned, Adam, that you don't want to be mean and just say, hey, you're overweight, you're not lean enough. So let's say just improve your conditioning, which I think is a very fair, polite, tactful way of saying that. But you ended last time talking about how sometimes clients with their own dysmorphia don't really get a feel for where they are. And you use the phrase that you will sometimes use other clients' photos, other people's. And I do the exact same thing. As soon as I feel like a client is getting a little too comfortable because, we're comparing ourselves to how we looked last week and last month and 3 months ago in the off season. And so we start feeling pretty good about ourselves. And often we get surprised when we get to a contest and there are 10 people who are just better than us. And, specifically in conditioning. So as I mentioned in episode 1 with my client, where I sent him a picture of another client's glutes and I said, okay, you're doing great, but here's the gold standard. Like, this is where we have to get to eventually. It's kind of a wake up call to say, there are going to be people like this on stage. And I feel like with bikini competition now too, and knowing where that line is with glute ham tie-ins and definition and tightness, there's still just a lot of questions in terms of where to take conditioning. So just give me your general feedback on how you prepare a client for, just being conditioned enough. And then maybe when they get that feedback from judges, how to discern it.
Yeah, first, I think, there's been an evolution of this particular term. And I don't know if you remember this, but it seemed like in the earlier days when there were less competitors and shows were, still relatively long, they posed people longer. So, I want to say back in the early 2000s, maybe up until like 2013, I feel like judges would use conditioning as a term to pose better longer. But now conditioning has been, currently, I think, used as a form of leanness. And have you noticed that that's kind of evolved as the sport's gone, where that term has virtually like changed course on what it meant?
Well, for sure, now it definitely means, leanness and body comp. But, to your point, there was a time when in close calls, judges would almost kind of extend posing cycles just to see almost like who could outlast the other one. And you definitely don't see that anymore, because now you've got contests with 400, 600 people and they're just running them through.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up first because that term can get a little confusing just because of the history of it. But I prefer just for a judge to say, come in leaner or harder or softer. You need to soften up a little bit. So if they just say conditioning, that could be up or down depending on what they want you to bring in. So if you get a called conditioning, ask what they mean by that, if they want you harder, softer, or, maybe potentially they did bring back a really long posing round and you started breathing really heavily. That's one of the reasons they say Phil Heath lost the Olympia to Sean Roden was his posing conditioning versus his actual conditioning, or leanness, I should say.
Yeah, I like what you just said there about asking for clarification. And I know, especially with the big NPC national shows, now they're dividing it out. If you're in this division, contact this judge for feedback, et cetera. And you're supposed to send them pictures so they can assess. They don't, they have to run through film or try and go by memory. So all of that is great for efficiency. But again, it does show that they're just looking at you as a snapshot. You're asking a judge, barring the entire show itself, just to look at your photos and give you a quick assessment. And so, I know that they probably don't want you responding back 17 times, carrying on this conversation, but for a quick ask for clarification, I think is appropriate and really good advice.
Absolutely. You're spending all those hours in the gym for the next season. So, don't be afraid to ask to be sent in the right direction. So, that a year or two off season effort isn't going to waste.
All right, guys. Well, next time we're going to be talking about in episode 4, adding muscle, which sometimes is a directive from judges. So we'll see you next time in Contest Prep University.